Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for October 17th through 21st, 2022. Well, we are having a lot of messages coming through around endings and beginnings. Today, we have Mercury coming to its end of its retrograde story, making it back to 8 degrees Libra, where this whole thing started a couple of months ago. So, now that Mercury has made it back to where it started the retrograde, it means it's moving into new territory. We're also feeling the coming off of the Saturn-Uranus square that has been influencing and defining the last year and a half or two of astrology. And yet we're about to move into a Mars retrograde session. So we are kind of examining and this whole bigger picture of all of the cycles within cycles, the astrology is speaking to, of this kind of lining up of cycles within cycles. So this makes this Mars retrograde season a time of preparation and initiation, a time to find our voice and expression again, preparation of the visionary leaders of our new age. So there's a lot of pressure here because Mars getting ready to turn retrograde in Gemini is in a tense square with Neptune. Mars makes this square with Neptune that is just come off its exact, and but we'll be feeling it because Mars just made an exact square with Neptune, and we'll be making another square with Neptune in November after it turns retrograde. That means that for the whole month of October and November, we're feeling this influence of Mars square Neptune. Now, typically, squares and oppositions with Neptune bring up a lot of confusion of what is real, what's not real, what's good, what's bad, just everything about the Piscean age here kind of coming up right now. Mars, our warrior, is our main action planet, our main wanting to move forward and do something. So Mars retrograde in itself can be very frustrating. Mars retrograde in Gemini is about our voice and expression and communication and interaction with the other. And we have had an incredible amount of tension over the last couple of years, feelings of not being able to really talk coherently, just like adults around different things, and bringing up everywhere for SuperNova Souls over past lives and evolutions where your voice has been silenced, or you agreed to silence your voice in order to stay alive, have friends, be a part of a community. Whew. So powerful triggers, but this is like the silencing can't go on. And that's what this Mars retrograde is about because really what we're talking about, the big silencing that actually happened, was the voice of the feminine and the balance of the masculine and feminine. And when the last shift of ages at the Christ event, that started a whole story of persecuting very directly the feminine, not just women, but the healing arts and the mystical arts that bring balance, peace, and harmony to our world, the true healing arts. It's hard to even conceive of that with our healthcare system. Um, so now Mars is getting ready to retrograde, doesn't like that at all. So there's this pressure on our expression and all of the words and all of the things we haven't been able to say on every level of our life. But then with the square to Neptune, it's like, but what is my voice? What do I want to say? I can't, what I thought I wanted to say, by the time I go to say it, it's wrong again because we're shifting so fast and our reality is just like, so um, it's this very kind of pent up, stuck place. We've been stuck for the whole Piscean age, really, as in looking at an evolutionary standpoint. And for the last couple of years, very acute expression of this silencing. And so there's just this tension growing and yet a confusion about what it is you really want to say. And maybe that's this Mars retrograde is we've got to reclaim our message. And so the square with Neptune is saying, yeah, it's time to come out from hiding, and show who you are in the world and sing your song share your message, but it's like we're changing so fast. If you're on the path here, it's like deconstruction is happening to our psyche and our that was a big part of the Mercury retrograde. So it's like a complete rearranging of our psyche and everything breaking down. Um, and the kind of a feeling of like something you initiated or a thought or an idea or a project, maybe feeling of by the time that project is moving along or those thoughts or those expression, the paradigm is shifting. So you can't complete the project because there isn't a structure to hold it in the new timeline that you just jumped on or something like that. I don't know. So just this is kind of this strange time we're in of like pressure to express, pressure to move, frustration and not around not being able to do this, righteous anger rising to the surface and yet nowhere to go with it. So that's this Mars retrograde cycle. Mars turns retrograde on the 31st of October, Halloween in the US, and then um, will turn direct again, not until January 12th. Mars will come out of its retrograde shadow mid-March, and that's when all of our planets will be beginning to turn direct again. And so there's an energy of starting new chapters after this Mars retrograde. So know that there's tension and pressure to express, perform, and move forward, and frustration and not being able to, because once again, the same issue we've been having, the old is falling away and dismantling, and we can't do it that way anymore. But the new hasn't quite landed. And so here we are again in the teeter-totter. And this is what the Mars square Neptune feels like. It's like, oh yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm going, I'm moving, I'm making it. Right. And it's like, ooh, no, I'm questioning everything on every level of my reality. This is a good place to be. We supernova souls getting the message, we're here to lead the way in a spiritual ascension, and that awakening seems to be coming from truth and disclosure. Um, and awareness of our bigger truth, who we really are, our true history, the technology that's been hidden from us. We need to embody these energies. We need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable place of all of your constructs falling away because we're going to be holding the peace as the masses go through this process. And so we've got to allow ourselves to be in that uncomfortable place. Maybe that's part of this Mars retrograde square Neptune energy. And Mars will come back into a square with Neptune in March when it comes back out of retrograde shadow, or not quite come into square. No, it will hit a square there. And so we're gonna be this whole next 3, 4 months is about finding that voice. But what is that voice? Because we don't wanna speak as supernova souls from our lower personality constructs anymore, right? Like, we don't wanna play in that sandbox. It's just too painful, too old. But everybody around us might be still wanting to pull us back into that again and again, but we're breaking down the barriers. We're coming into that voice again, and that's what this Mars retrograde we got the message from the beginning, it's like powerful initiation period, a remembering, a reinitiation. We came in as full initiates. We just played a game and agreed to forget. We had in order to do this, what we came here to do and be a part of, and for our own soul development, we had to go as supernova souls all the way down to the darkest places of what Earth evolution could produce. Now, that for a lot of us happened throughout lifetimes, but in the Piscean Age, because it was such a deliberate persecution of the light. It was like that Christ consciousness impulse. Rudolf Steiner talked about that Christ event was really about an etheric energy shift. The Christ consciousness, meaning my definition or what's come through in asking what's Christ consciousness, what does that even mean? This is just a palpable, direct connection to spiritual energy right here, not something we need to go out and find. Right? We're recognizing that we are God particles. Therefore, we have direct access to creation energy and direct access to source. We just have to learn how to receive it again. Um, That brings me to the powerful energy we're starting to feel right now, which is this Venus catching back up to the sun. And Venus is coming close to the sun. We're just now feeling this conjunction, and it's a very, very powerful. Venus and the sun will be just right together from the 21st to the 24th of October, moving over into Scorpio together. Now, powerful messages here. So the sun is about our identity, our role we're playing, who we think we are. And Venus, of course, is our feminine, going through the end degrees of Libra, where she's at home and loving it and in the garden and in peace and harmony and balance, and then, tipping over into the underworld, and it's like maybe why the feminine hasn't been able to be healed and purified in all of us, because she hasn't been brave enough to go back into that shadowy darkness and claim back her light. So the sun and Venus moving over to Scorpio together says it's a birth, a death, and a birth. A death, just like our old personality constructs, our old timelines, and a death of all of those constructs, and a rebirth into the divine feminine, the purified feminine. But first, we got to go get back her magic. We can't just clean up the shame without recognizing why she was so beaten down in the first place. Now, remember, we're talking about not men and women, but the masculine and feminine within each of us. So, wow, Venus and the sun coming together. It's such a beautiful energy. But at the same time, it's like we can't get to the light till we, reconcile the dark. And we've been dancing around a lot of dark shit, pretending it's not here. And the elephant is getting too big in the room to even move around now. So this sun and Venus are speaking to an era of disclosure. The chapter that's beginning, we've already been getting little drip, drip, drip. And, if you want to see, you can see all this truth is available. If you don't want to see, you can completely avoid it and just keep watching CNN. So what's happening now is we're being guided into the underworld in order to get that captured queen, bring her back on her rightful throne within each of us in our hearts. And so Sun and Venus coming together exact in the next few days, next weekend is when that exact will be happening. And then moving over into Scorpio together on the 23rd, powerful preparation for the partial solar eclipse happening right there, Sun, Moon, Venus, right at the very beginning of Scorpio. Partial solar eclipse at 2 degrees Scorpio, 0 minutes. It's kind of like, get rid of the whole fraction and decimal thing. It's like, and all of the other options, 2, 1, 2, and then what? 2 or more come together. And what can we create together? Finally, this is a message that there is nothing that can keep you from finding your people, your soul group, those you're here to work with. It's been a long time since you've come together. You need to prepare yourself and be ready. You need to know you deserve it. You need to know that when you do meet your soul tribe members, the power of the mirror reflection validation can be so intense that you want to run from that, because so many supernova souls have never had that level of spiritual validation. It's not an ego. This is the beautiful thing. It's like validation on soul spiritual level of like, oh my God, I'm not the only one out here that is, like just this incredible loneliness for the supernova soul through evolutionary time and space, where we've again and again, when we chose our truth and our direction, we had to give up on our family, community, and connection, or our life. This is this huge energy of the Aries energy we've been feeling with the Jupiter in Aries, Mercury in Libra opposite, and both taking a retrograde. Now, we cannot ignore the power of this connection of these Libra Aries axis and and these retrograde cycles. And that's why this Mercury coming out of retrograde shadow today is marking an end chapter. The beginning chapters are still we're figuring it out, but it's endings and beginnings and being stuck in between. And again, it's definitely that Mars square Neptune. It's like, oh yeah, you think you're getting out of the Piscean age, huh? So not without our voice and not without our queen. And so as so the Mercury now coming out of retrograde shadow. Mercury started its retrograde at 8 degrees Libra. Jupiter started its retrograde at 8 degrees Aries. Mercury retrograde, of course, that's a faster cycle than Jupiter retrograde. And so, but Mercury took 3 oppositions. Um, and we just are finishing up that final opposition of Mercury, Jupiter, but just a face down of the truth and the lies around individuality and community. And we've been programmed to think that if we go our own way, if we think our own way, if we follow our spiritual pursuit, if we become who we really are, then we won't be able to have community and love and family. And that is a lie because our soul groups, supernova soul groups, a picture that's been shown is we came in a pod into this evolution. That's why we have such similar patterns throughout our past lives. And that's why we can connect and reflect back, and our healing supports all supernova souls, the whole field. And so we came in together. There's very beautiful moments in past lives where for a moment you were probably came together and were able to do amazing work. That's when you were planting the seeds that it's now time to sprout. And maybe this is this Aries activation because get this, Mercury, now out of retrograde shadow, is going to, it's a big marker for Mercury to come in to opposition with Chiron. Chiron's at 13 degrees Aries, and Mercury now kind of like, yeah, out of retrograde, cool, but another Libra Aries opposition. Now, Chiron is exactly this, our deepest wound. So it's like the Mercury retrograde, even though it's out of shadow, this is a completion energy of that cycle. And that happens exact on the 20th. And so this week, and then we'll feel the influence of that up until the Sun and Venus come together and move into Scorpio. So here we have just all these markers in time. And what does it mean? Well, Mercury has now gone through this whole retrograde change of perspective around what is harmony and unity and beautiful balance. It's not sustainable if it's not based on truth, you know? And it's like we've been planting these seeds of this utopia and this new golden age that we're moving into, but we've been brainwashed and gaslit to that we can't embrace it and live in this vision. That's why it's so powerful and so many forces have worked against supernova souls coming together because we have a shared vision. And when we have that magnetic mirror effect, that vision is activated and it lives and it's real. And so no wonder we ourselves have made so many contracts and agreements around keeping us from coming finding each other. Because if you were targeted in your light and two of you together, that's way more of a bright light and way more targeting. And then we all were kind of stories played out that if we come into our light and our truth, then our whole village will be persecuted for it. Or, and so there was this agreed upon dispersion of these of light worker souls. And so we have to understand where inside of us have we not been feeling worthy, or we don't believe that we have a soul team, like what's blocking. And that's a lot of this Aries axis because every time, especially through the Piscean age, we chose to be in our true spiritual light. We had to choose to go against our community and family, working as we, part of the Piscean age is also seem to be a bloom of karmic relationships where the relationships in your family and the people around you were more about keeping you distracted and invalidated in your vision and your purpose and who you really are. And so we're rewriting all of these stories. So that's a big part of this axis is this the pain and the grief. And Chiron, now Mercury, Chiron, it's like this is the quintessential, even though Mercury's direct and he's kind of like ready to go, but he's got to come into this opposition And it's powerful because actually the sun and Venus, now Mercury will get, after Mercury comes out of shadow, it starts moving really very fast. And so it's actually coming to catch up. It will eventually be catching up with the sun and the moon and moving into Scorpio on the 30th of October. We got so much happening that last week. And so this means that the sun and then Venus and the Mercury are all going to be making the transits that happen here at the end of moving out of Libra and before moving into Scorpio. So that is each of them taking a turn. And right now we're feeling this squaring up with Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, who's at 20 degrees. Then trining up with Mars in Gemini at 24 degrees. And then squaring up with Pluto, 26 degrees. And so it's kind of like, wow, we're like, oh, Venus and the sun coming together, moving over to Scorpio. This is the story of what this is about. This is like the qualifying factors because Mercury's catching up. So it'll be the feminine and our identity having a rebirth and a renewal and going into the shadows and the death in order to be reborn. And then Mercury coming in to basically reset a new construct that is way more based on truth. And so there could be clarity that comes after this Scorpio season for sure. But so each of these, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, taking turns, squaring Black Moon Lilith, trining Mars, and then squaring Pluto. So let's talk this through. We've got our mind, our identity, our feminine, and our mind all going through this journey. And so square with Black Moon Lilith and Cancer, this is the underlying thing everything's about right now. Everything can be perfect in your life, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, things are happening and supporting me. Life is supporting me in a way that it hasn't before, but there's still something there. You could have all the money stacked up and all the fun, experiences with other people, but there's something. It's almost like having things begin to work for you brings up this deep grief of what it's like you can have everything in the world you want, but if you don't feel connected and held and loved by the mother and supported in this experience, it's like this deep wound of separation that's coming up from these transits. Now, Black Moon Lilith is also in trine to Neptune. So it's a new spiritual understanding of this wound. And it speaks to, it's like when we speak the truth that was all suppressed and the feminine comes back into her power, what we find is a conceptual way to describe that is a direct connection to source. And so much of the persecution that happened in the Piscean Age was about people who are speaking and living and being a living, breathing example of a direct connection to source. And so Black Moon Lilith is saying, hey, you go deep enough down that dark black hole, that rabbit hole we've all been like, oh, get me out of here. You're going to find yourself back at the center, at home, in the light of who you really are. And so it's just another energy. The trine is a harmonious energy with Black Moon Lilith. So all of this is about harmonizing the facing and the reality of this deep disconnect on our heart chakra, and everything right now in our modern world is working against this. So it's actually good if you find this place inside of you and it's coming up. That's like, oh, thank God I can feel it, because most people are so disconnected right now and everything is designed to interfere with our spiritual pursuit. Like, just, oh no, that's not there. Oh no, look over here. Look over here, not there. And so if you are feeling this thing come up of this like, oh, loneliness that could never be filled, that's actually a really good thing, because you're feeling and your heart is alive still and awakening. That's the thing. When we have secrets and mysteries in our heart chakra. And when that we awaken, it's a vulnerable, raw place. And yet, this is the Scorpio season and energy. It's like, don't you want to be real? Don't you want to have a real experience into the depth of who you really are? And what this, if you're making that choice to come back to center, but you find that, ugh, and you don't want to be there, they're never going to do it. So just remember we're all doing it together, supernova souls. And we're everything that as we come back, we're bringing our whole tribe with us into our heart. So that's a square with Black Moon Lilith. And then all of these planets are also making a trine with Mars. Beautiful trine. Energy harmonizing an air trine, speaking to the new renaissance, the lifting up of like working together with the ether, element coming back into our world. And the connection between creation energy and creative and beauty and love with our spiritual truth and the world we want to see. It's like spiritual healing and art coming back together. That's kind of this energy, and that all has to do with our voice and expression. And so, we Mars comes in, or the sun is in trine to Mars tomorrow exact, and then Venus comes into trine with Mars on Wednesday. And so very beautiful energy of harmonizing and inviting ourselves into that voice again through, because a new feminine identity, the queen, she can speak the truth, but it's not even the truth. It's like the vibrational truth, that the sounds that come out of that resonant frequency bring all around it into harmony. And so powerful energies there. And especially just as Mars is going to take a retrograde. So it's saying that if we're going to save the queen and get out from under the darkness, it requires us bringing back our voice, the fractured feminine teachings that were cut out and buried. I've seen in past life pictures this thing like, we're going to find more scrolls, or, maybe they're already found, but we don't know about them yet, right? Like what was under the Vatican. But it's like, there's revelations coming around, scrolls that are going to be discovered that clarify a lot of this stuff. But it's a voice, it's our expression of these spiritual truths that have been suppressed, and what we're trying to harmonize and come back to. You know how you say, and you go to say something, you're going to receive it, or you start to say it and they just go, eh, and it gets all clogged up. And so this all clogged up. And so this is definitely the energy of the Mars retrograde, but in trine with Sun, Venus, Mercury, one after the other. And then square with Pluto. So now Sun, Venus, Mercury coming up with a square with Pluto. The square with Pluto happens. Let's see if I can. It's just too much going on to keep track of it all. So that will be happening. Oh, there it is. The Sun squares up with Pluto this on Thursday, and then Venus squares Pluto on Thursday, Friday. So coming up into this weekend, and then boom, Sun and Venus make up. So they're going through this whole journey. So the square with Pluto is about coming up against the structures of authority and power structures. So Pluto rules our power and our fear, our power, our psychic power. Mars is action power and just the trajectory power, personal power. So we've all been programmed to fear our power. So in Pluto in Capricorn is about authoritarian energies that we've given over our power to, we agreed to forget how powerful we are. We said, oh, we can't handle it. Oh, it's going to cause problems. We ever give it to you. And then we have to go beg for it back, And so those contractual arrangements and agreements that we've made to forget who we are and give away our power and allow this, our energy be used to create false matrix, that's over. And the square with Pluto is that. It's like, all right, so when it really comes down to going to save the queen, we got to go up against these powers, not go up against them, but understand that they didn't have any power. Their power that we're so scared of, and they're taught us to fear our own power. It's our power they're using against us. So it's not about going up against, it's just about recognizing that it's ours. And if it's ours and we have that direct connection, then whatever they want to play out just can't touch us. Because this is the big trick. for supernova souls, understanding that yes, we came in, yes, we agreed to forget. Um, yes, we were programmed with fear around our own power, and we, made these contractual arrangements never to come into it. But those contracts we made were with dimensional beings, not as evolved as where we came from and who we are. We have no business even interacting with them, much less making contractual arrangement to forget who we are, right? Do you see how close we are to game over? And it's gonna be glorious, but we gotta go into the dark side, right? And so that's powerful because with that square with Pluto, it's like breaking those contracts, like, this is, it's like squares are like, you can't go any further down this road, right? So we gotta free ourselves in our mind, our psyche, our emotions, everything. And so it's a powerful combination, just as the Sun and Venus are at exact and moving over into Scorpio together. Now that happens on the 23rd, the same day that Saturn goes direct. So this is this chapter ending thing, because Saturn going direct is ending the Saturn square Uranus that's been influencing us for the last year and a half. And so the new chapter, the end of the old chapter and the new chapter has everything to do with the new feminine identity. And so, square to Black Moon Lilith, it's about our core wound and whether we deserve our power. You can break all those contracts. If you don't feel worthy of your power and the energy of your source connection, that's your birthright, then you're never going to be able to receive it. Trine Mars. It's like the sounds, it's like we haven't been able to reach different frequencies and octaves of experience and vibration. And these are opening up. The heavens are opening up for us. But Mars is just about to turn retrograde, so we don't really get there till next spring. And then square with Pluto, got to break the contracts, got to take back our power, got to take back our mind. And it kind of gives us a little bit more information about what that Mercury retrograde was about. And this clarity will be coming. Mercury has to make all these transits opposite Chiron and make all these, but then we're going to get some more clarity after that retrograde. But then so the Sun and Venus move into Scorpio together on the 23rd, Saturn turns direct. And then on the 25th is that partial solar eclipse in Scorpio at 2 degrees. We got to come together and do this together. We got to balance the masculine, feminine exactly. You know, we can't have like that masculine's balanced and the feminine's all like, bleh, or vice versa. And so, also on that day, the 25th, Mercury will be that's when Mercury will make it square to Black Moon Lilith. And so that says that the 2 degrees coming together, or two coming together, is about healing. How can we do that? How can we come back into perfect union when we feel fundamentally disconnected from source, love, mother, and our own abundance? So, and then we're going to have that partial solar eclipse. So that's on the 25th, the partial solar eclipse Tuesday. But the soul group session for the eclipse is going to be the day before on Monday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And I'll have information about that soon. So keep in mind those soul group sessions, supernova soul group sessions, group intuitive session. We take the power of our group energy and we look at those shared past life pictures that can give us insight, clearing, healing, and information, timeline reset, soul group work, all of it can happen. So very powerful time together. And I hope you'll consider joining us. There will also be a a lunar eclipse. That's a total lunar eclipse happening on November 8th. There will also be a soul group session for that. So two powerful opportunities for us to come together and work in this beautiful supernova field together. And so incredibly powerful energies. And we really want to pay attention to these end days next week of October, because we've got, after that solar eclipse on Tuesday, the 25th, then Mercury will come into its trine with Mars. And then so when it reaches that Aries point, it will be a very powerful energy at the end of the month there around the 28th. And then on the On the 29th, Jupiter moves back into Pisces, right? We got to go back into that story of the Piscean Age so we can reclaim the mystical spiritual revelation of what it was really about in the first place. And that's reclaiming our truth and our light. So on the 29th, Jupiter moves back into Pisces. On the 30th, Mercury moves over to Scorpio and joins and gets closer to Venus and the Sun. And then that weekend, following weekend, we will be having Mercury, like we said, moving into Scorpio. On the 31st, Mars turns retrograde. So like Jupiter going back into Pisces, Mercury, Scorpio, and Mars retrograde all happening. Now that's when we have the exact of the Black Moon Lilith trine Neptune, which is a very harmonizing energy of like, how do you get back to that direct connection to source? You got to heal that wound of separation. And that's different for each of us. You know, it's a very individual journey. And the energy is really about like, we just have to be willing to make it. We've been running and hiding from this feeling of being lost and left alone here and abandoned, and forgotten, and we can't ever come back into our abundance if that's our energetic. But it's in it, and it might be like, I don't really feel that way, but deep in our subconscious, right? And then it's informing us. And so this is our opportunity. All of this is about going into the subconscious and being like, cut all those cords and all those belief systems and defrag and reprogramming the whole system. So then the thing we really want to watch for is when first Venus comes up to the south node on the 3rd of November, and the sun comes up to the south node on the 6th of November. And so then Mercury will be coming up to the south node. And so very powerful first week of November. Mercury comes up to the south node on the 8th, the day of the total lunar eclipse and election day in the US. And that eclipse happens at 16 degrees Taurus. Very powerful energy around moving into that abundance and learning to receive again. The new world that's waiting for us. So thank you so much, SuperNova Souls, for being with me and being here and going through all you've gone through. It's exciting and trepidatious journey ahead of us, and yet so beautiful to reclaim the magic that we truly are. And one by one, we're doing it and affecting the whole field together. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you soon on the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.